Hi everyone, I'm Rod Jans from Telecare. Welcome to Caring Conversations, being seen and loved as we are. We're so glad that you could join us today. We're at a studio here in Abbotsford, BC, and our tech is provided by MS Productions. Telecare is a crisis and caring line serving British Columbia. Every year we receive 3,000 calls that are answered by trained volunteers who provide a listening ear and referrals if needed. Just to let you know what we're going to be doing tonight, I'll just go over the agenda real quick. In just a minute, we're going to hear a song from Luke Vandevert. Luke created his own video introduction, so when I'm done introducing the agenda for tonight, we'll let that roll and we'll hear a song from him. Later on in the program, Luke is going to come back and he's going to share a brand new song for us that he wrote based on the theme of the evening called Limbo. So please stay with us to the end of the program so that you can hear that. After Luke's first song, we're going to hear from our speaker, Daniel Whitehead, who helped us come up with our theme for tonight, Being Seen and Loved as You Are. And then after Daniel's talk, we're going to have a live question and answer session with Daniel. So if you have a question for Daniel, please enter it into the chat on either Facebook or YouTube. Then we're going to hear a couple quick messages from Telecare's Executive Director, Bill Strom, and Board Chair Janet Hitchcock. Also, you might have noticed that we have a draw, and we've put everyone's name who registered into a draw for a boat cruise from Cole Harbour to Indian Arm. And this is for you and 3 friends, and we'll announce the winner just after Luke's last song. So, enjoy Caring Conversations, being seen and loved as we are, and thanks again for joining us tonight.
Hello everyone, my name is Luke Vandevert. I'm also known as the Arctic for my music and film work. Thank you for being here. I think what Telecare is doing is quite significant and important work. I don't believe we're ever meant to suffer alone. And the fact that you have an ability to call someone when you're having the darkest night of your life, that's an important thing to have. To talk to someone in a dire time, it's very important. Excited to share these songs with you, and I hope you enjoy. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3.
Blood, my soul yearns for your own. Jesus, I long for thee. You are the one who lifts me from the depths. Jesus, you are my help and my rest. And you clothe your own in the joy of dancing. Won't you come and cover me with the same thing? My tongue sings of your love. My mind is drawn to your design. And I know even when I don't, that I still long for thee, that I still long for thee. You are the one who lifts me from the depths. Jesus, you are my help and my rest. You clothe your own in the joy of dancing. Won't you come and cover me with the same thing? Cover me Jesus, you are my help and my rest. You clothe your own in the joy of dancing. Won't you come and cover me? Won't you come and cover me? Won't you come and cover me with the same thing?
Telecare BC was founded in 1989 to provide telephone befriending, caring, and empathetic listening for people in moments of personal crisis or distress. Telecare is a faith-based ministry that relies on volunteers to serve on phone lines between 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. 7 days a week. Our volunteers come from all walks of life and must complete our online training program. Volunteers can sign up for anywhere from 2 to 20 hours per week and can take calls from the Telecare office or from the comfort of their own homes. Our mission is to provide confidential, anonymous, and non-judgmental trained listeners who respond with care to the needs of any caller, regardless of race, creed, or social standing, who may be facing personal problems. At times, callers may be in crisis or distress, but some callers are simply looking for a good listener. Telecare has continued to see an increase in calls over the last few years. However, in 2020, 19% of our calls went unanswered. Our goal is for no call to go unanswered. Telecare relies on the support of our community to keep our phone lines open and people serving on the lines. Thank you for supporting Telecare.
Thanks, Luke. That was beautiful. Our keynote speaker tonight is Daniel Whitehead, CEO of Sanctuary Mental Health Ministries in Vancouver. Daniel is a Regent College graduate and an ordained minister with over 10 years of full-time vocational church ministry experience. In Daniel's bio, he writes, "Having spent 10 years in full-time vocational church ministry, I know the levels of brokenness that a community carries, often in secret. And I've witnessed firsthand the good, the bad, and the ugly approaches to mental health. I can personally attest to the challenges of leading at times when my own mental health was poor." We're extremely delighted to have Daniel speak for us tonight. So please help me welcome Daniel Whitehead. Daniel.
Well, good evening, everyone. You know, I don't think it's possible to experience true well-being without good relationships. A number of years ago, an experiment was conducted on a rat. A rat was placed in a cage and given 2 sources of water. In one was pure, regular water, and in the other water, it was laced with an opioid, a drug. And they observed which water the rat would drink. And sure enough, the rat exclusively drank the drug-laced water, while the other one wasn't touched. But then a researcher said, well, this isn't a fair test, so let's do it again. But this time, let's give the rat everything a rat needs to be happy. So they gave it a comfortable environment and gave it other rats, a community. And when they placed the 2 water sources in the cage again, the rats all drank the pure water and left the drug-laced water alone. If relationships are required by rats so that they can be well, they are definitely required by humans, who are made in the image of the triune God, who himself is a relationship, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Indeed, if I asked your family and friends to describe who you are, they would only be able to do so because they have a relationship with you. They wouldn't describe you biologically. Oh, well, he has 2 arms, 2 legs, a nose. No, they would describe who you are out of their relational experience of you, because that's who you are. Now, when we talk about relationships, I think we talk about 4. Relationship to God, relationship to self, relationship to others, and relationship to creation, all that God has made. And so to be rightly related to God is predicated on the quality and depth of these 4 relationships. When barriers get in the way of any of these 4, we're out of sync, we're vulnerable, and we need support. And so we are relational beings made in the image of a relational God, made for relationships. In other words, relationships define us. Also, as people, we are biological, psychological, social, and spiritual. We call this the biopsychosocial spiritual model. Now, historically, medical science has acknowledged the biopsychosocial model, though in recent years there has been more accommodation of the spiritual nature of persons as well. So again, in this model, we see 4 aspects of our personhood, which all interact or relate to each other. We are relational beings after all, and we require a relational framework to make sense of who we are. Each aspect of ourselves impacts the other. We are impacted, holistically speaking, by all of these areas. Now, one of the challenges we face with this relational view of personhood is that many of us, at least culturally speaking, live in a world with dominant narratives that stand counter to this picture of humanity as being holistically dependent. This relational idea that all of our different aspects of ourselves relate to each other. When we talk about the interconnectedness of these 4 relationships and how if one suffers, the others suffer. And if one is weak, the others are weakened. And the reverse is true. If one is strengthened, the others are strengthened. But counter to this holistic framework, many of us are immersed in a Western culture where personhood is largely framed biomedically speaking. We are first and foremost reminded that we are biological beings. And when we experience relational difficulty, we want to quickly diagnose a problem that can be medically fixed first and foremost. Medical diagnoses are the first thing we go for when there's a problem. Now, this is built on an implicit and common secularized philosophy that says that people are purely biological beings. No room for spirituality there. And therefore, the gods of our days are physicians and medical doctors who can fix all our problems, or at least so we are implicitly told. Now, I'm not against physicians or medical doctors. I am in fact incredibly grateful for the vocation of the physician. I am a grateful recipient of that fine vocation and have been my whole life. In fact, for the record, if ever you encounter someone experiencing a mental health crisis, the first question you should ask is, have you seen a doctor, a physician? However, medical doctors are not God. They don't know everything. They can't fix everything. And as obvious as I hope that assertion is to you, I would suggest that subtly our culture often tries to convince us that medical science is the only answer to all our problems. This is a very modern approach, a hallmark of the modern era. The notion that humanity can fix all its problems through science and that the world is progressing to a point where we have absolutely no need for spirituality anymore, because we are first and foremost and ultimately framed as medical, biological beings. In this modern Western worldview, at least. And by that I mean kind of the last 200 years. Now, I think the Bible has some things to say to that. Indeed, when we look to the ministry of Jesus, we see that he wanted to extend his kingdom beyond the religious systems that existed in that day. These systems simply couldn't contain God's kingdom. They weren't big enough. And of course, Jesus paid the ultimate price for establishing a vast vision of God's kingdom for all people everywhere. Similarly, for ourselves, I would suggest that our personhood can't be constrained to neat and tidy, siloed approaches, where we are spiritual on Sundays, physical when we do exercise, psychological when we do our work, and biomedical when we're not being spiritual enough. I'm of course being slightly facetious, but for many of us, at least those of us who have grown up with a Western worldview, if we're really honest, we have lost the sense in which we are holistically made to be biological, psychological, social, and spiritual all at the same time. And in this way, we lose the sense in which every aspect of our being is made by God and is good. We unknowingly commit the error of dualism, where we play the different parts of our personhood against the other. Does God view the aspects of our lives hierarchically? Or does he see us in all of our complexity and say, wow, my image bearer, look what I've made? You see, I believe God has made us relationally. Our personhood is defined relationally. We are interconnected. We need all of these aspects of who we are to be attended to so that we might know true well-being, true shalom. All of which is to say that interdependence is a much higher goal than independence. Now, this is certainly not a cultural truth, but I would argue that it is a gospel truth. In a world that seemingly wants to turn people into objects, that wants to see a person's worth according to what they do or what they have, or how self-sufficient and autonomous they can be, we have to present a different vision for humanity. And this is all very important in the mental health conversation and for people in crisis. Being a human in relationship has nothing to do with what we do or don't know, or how much we have, or what we can do, but instead it's about how connected we are. What if we as a society valued the ability to give and receive love over productivity? Who would we idolize in our culture if we did that? Would it be the richest, the strongest, the most outwardly attractive, the most intellectually accomplished? I suspect not. You know, in the Gospel of John, chapter 15, verse 15, we see the changing of our identity. We are no longer servants of God, we are friends. And it seems to me that the gospel is preoccupied in redefining this relationship of how people should relate to God, and therefore how people should relate to each other. And so, to put it quite simply, friendship, biblical friendship, is critical to our knowing well-being. Because biblical friendship suspends our differences and instead affirms the other. Friendship isn't supposed to serve a purpose for us and our ability to climb up the social ladder. Biblical friendship is about committing to others who are not like us and seeing their innate value and worth, just as God has done with us. We see this type of friendship modeled by God, who calls us into relationship with himself, even though we are different. I mean, we're made in his image, but make no mistake, we're kind of different. And in this relationship with God, this friendship, time really matters. Being busy has become a status symbol in our culture. And I know from experience that it's often a status symbol in pastoral ministry. I was a pastor for 10 years. And yet emptiness is important. And emptiness helps us to see what is happening and what needs there are. If you're always on the move, you can lose the moment. You can miss what's really going on. And making time our friend is so important. There's a great book called 3 Mile an Hour God, written by Japanese theologian Kutsuki Kuyama. His thesis is very simple, that when love was incarnate among us in the person of Jesus, it moved at the average walking speed of a human being, which is 3 miles an hour. Jesus walked at 3 miles an hour. Love has a speed, and it is slow. It's 3 miles an hour. Love takes time. finding space is essential. The Sabbath, mentioned in Exodus 20, verse 8, is all about taking time to think of God outside of linear or industrial time. And in this practice, we learn to experience the significance of this present moment, that God is present in the present. We need to attune to this truth regularly. This is how I define the practice of mindfulness. Don't get freaked out thinking mindfulness is New Age. It's a very godly endeavor. It is to remind ourselves in each and every moment that God is present and near, and that Jesus sits on the throne, with or without us. And we are invited to be friends with him, to be in relationship with him. And to be attuned to this truth is to truly be a mindful person, which is to live in a mode of Sabbath, to slow down and recognize God's presence. In acknowledging the importance of space, I would also remind us that in the Genesis creation narrative, God creates from nothing. That Jesus goes to embrace his ministry after 40 days of nothing. That the children of Israel wandered for 40 years, seemingly doing nothing. And how much of our lives is spent resisting nothing spaces, instead keeping ourselves busy, occupied, distracted, only for us to realize in hindsight that these nothing spaces were in fact places where profound spiritual formation was actually taking place. We worship a God who creates from nothing. So maybe we need to get better at doing nothing or making space in our lives. Maybe in doing nothing, we realize who we are because we realize whose we are. Maybe when we slow down and create space for love, we realize we're not located in our heads, but in our hearts. In this sense, inactivity or a lack of productivity, as implicitly defined in our Western culture, it has a redemptive purpose. Now, why do I say this? Well, I say this because many people experiencing a crisis, whether it be a mental health crisis or other, and those particularly coming out of a time of languishing, many articulate that nothing space, that time when all they had was time, has given them new insights into who God is and who they are. And it now allows them to love others differently. I would suggest that the ability to love and be loved, to cultivate relational depth to God and others and self and creation, is a more Christian calling than the goal to be more successful in the eyes of the world, which is to be healthy, wealthy, and busy or commercially productive. Now, they don't have to be mutually exclusive. You can be healthy, wealthy, and busy and still pursue great relationships with God, self, others, and creation. But make no mistake about it, if we're not cultivating relational depth as persons, we have missed our purpose. The thing people say to us at Sanctuary is that as hard as that difficult time was, in the midst of crisis, in the midst of despair, that internal darkness, the inability to see the good, many say that in hindsight they wouldn't change it because it has actually made them more human, because it's made them more relationally aware and more relationally connected. If we don't create safe spaces and relational depth for people who are in the midst of a crisis, if we don't give ourselves and others the permission to acknowledge our mental health challenges, we are depriving ourselves and others of life. And we are implicitly saying that these experiences of life are invalid in God's sight. And yet when I read the scriptures, particularly the Psalms of Lament, I see the very opposite. Love requires time. Time requires a certain way of being. And relationship is the environment in which spirituality occurs and humanity can be formed. You know, a really simple definition of love is to truly say to another person, it's good that you exist, and I'm glad that you're here, as you are. Let me assure you that for someone in the midst of a crisis, which is all of us at different points in our lives. We all need to hear that. Indeed, every human being on the earth needs someone to say this to them at some point in their lives, and preferably quite often. Because to know this, to know that we are loved, makes all the difference. What if the primary vocational purpose of Christianity is to prophetically lean into this simple vision of love, where we see people as they are and affirm their existence, and in doing so acknowledge their pain, their challenges and their crises openly, and say, I'm not scared of your pain. I see through it and I see who you are. I see who God has made you to be, and I'm so glad that you're here. So why did I go on about time and love, and what does this have to do with Telecare? Well, it strikes me that we have to reorient ourselves to create space and time to relate to and to love people that are suffering. That this is the remedy. It might be a slow remedy, a 3-mile-an-hour remedy, but that is the speed of love. And in pursuing this mode of being, what we will do is reframe how a person's story is understood and supported. Where a person is no longer an illness or a problem to be fixed, but rather a human being with tremendous potential, if only we can create the right environment for flourishing and recovery to take place. And you know what? The church has a long history of meeting very real and practical needs at a point of crisis. There is a sociologist called Rodney Stark who specifically studied why the Christian faith became the dominant and primary philosophical shaper of the world as we know it today. In his findings, he says that it was the faithful witness of Christians picking up discarded female babies from the rubbish dumps of Rome. The faithful witness of Christians that stayed behind and tended to the sick who had been abandoned by their families during the 2 bubonic plagues in Europe, often dying with them. And it was the faithful witness of the martyrs, crucified, tortured, and killed for the pleasure of Rome. It was this faithful witness that won through. Selfless love won through. Acts of compassion and selflessness won through, and it grabbed the attention of the prevailing culture of the time and caused repentance and a turning to God. Now, in the context of a global pandemic, how can we witness and attest to the love of God once more, as our forebears did? What does love look like in practice in these times? What witness are we having to those in their hour of need? Well, make no mistake about it. Telecare is one very powerful, practical way that the church is ready to support people in their hour of need. The mission of the church is to be that faithful witness of love, that witness that calls people into friendship with God. We need to endow people with their God-given image-bearing status. We have to endow people with their dignity, and we have to give them hope in their hour of need. As the leader of a mental health charity that is equipping churches around the world to support mental health, I am so grateful for the work of Telecare, a ministry of Christ and a tangible expression of love that says to the people of BC, we are here for you, we see you as you are, and we're so glad that you're here.
Hey, Daniel, how's it going?
Hey Rod, good to see you.
Yeah, thank you so much for providing us with that talk. It was excellent.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Great. We're just waiting for some questions to come up. We do have a couple of them here. And so obviously Daniel's at home tonight. He shot that video here in the studio that I'm in right now, but he's joining us from his home through the miracle of technology. The question is, and maybe people can see this up on their screen, I'm not sure, but what is your response to people who say they don't need others based on their experience that close relationships have caused them a lot of pain. Is there an option to go it alone if we think that it's best for our mental health?
Yeah, I think it's very understandable that people can feel like that. Many of us have been hurt in relationships, and obviously the church is a place where we can get hurt because that's the place where people are as well. So I think it's understandable that people may feel that way, and I think there may be seasons when we need to withdraw and hold back and take time. But I think ultimately we are made for relationships. And at some point we have to find that place of, it may be bravery that we need to step out in faith and to trust again, to trust that we can, draw near to someone and that we can enjoy friendship again. So I understand maybe for a season we may need to withdraw to protect ourselves, but ultimately I think God would always be calling us back into a relationship with himself, with others, with ourselves, and with all that he has made. I think that's what we're made for.
Excellent. I'm just going to do this question off of the cuff, but what do you see as the role of social media in mental health today? Like, what do you tell people? It can be an alienating thing, and yet it provides a bit of connection at the same time. So, how do you see it?
Yeah, I think there hasn't been enough research yet done to show the direct correlation of mental health challenges and social media usage. However, there are one or two studies that heavily allude to the fact that there is a correlation. There was a study that came out of Britain, I would say about 8 years ago, that showed the rise of suicidal ideation and depression and anxiety among young women seemed to correlate with the rise of social media use. It just seemed to, the bell curve almost followed exactly the same. So I think it's inferred, and I think the key is any culture or system that seeks to encourage us to compare ourselves will never end well. That is just not good for us as human beings. And God certainly doesn't call us to that. Jesus treats every person he meets as an individual. He meets them where they are, and he accepts where they are, and he ministers to them in their context. So I think we have to be wise stewards of social media and of technology, and be very aware that actually to continually be looking at other people who are airbrushed and showing off about how amazing their lives are, that just isn't good for us as human beings, and it's not real. It's an impossible task to live up to that. So I think we need to be wise and steward these things wisely.
Mm-hmm. I was nodding my head so vigorously because I know I do get caught up in comparison, seeing even friends on vacations and all that kind of stuff. It's like, oh, I'm here at home in the rain and you're out there having a wonderful time. We got another question up here on the screen. What does slowing down look like for ourselves and make safe and empty places or empty spaces? Or how do we create safe, empty spaces with others sorry, I'm not reading very well here. With others for both our benefit?
Yeah. I think, if you're anything like me, I love being busy. I have to be honest, I'm probably addicted to it. I love to pack my schedule, yet is it good for me? It's not. And I think the pandemic has taught us this. The pandemic has taught us that when we slow down, our priorities maybe change. And particularly when I think of myself, I have 2 small children. I'm not going to get to the end of my life and wish I'd done more things and been more busy. So I think we have to be really intentional about cultivating space. And to do that with friends is really important. Like, for me, I love nothing more than just being with friends and eating a meal together and laughing together. And I think these things are holy moments. They're not things that self-indulgent people do. They're actually good for our soul. So we don't need to justify having quieter times or rhythms of rest. God has made us for this, and there is something powerful and redemptive about creating space for rest, because I think that's the space in which creativity can emerge. So just if nothing else, trust me, build some space into your life, no agenda, and see what God does.
That's great. I actually read this week, a guy said, think about how it feels to be busy and even accomplish something at work and then do what you mentioned. Like, how does it feel to be with friends and the family? And just notice how different those two things feel. One is an accomplishment or whatever, but the other one brings a whole different sort of feeling to it when we make that kind of connection, you know? Yeah. All right, I think we've got time for one last question here. Just wait for it to come up on the screen. Do we have a fourth question? No, that was it. All right. Daniel, thanks so much for your talk and for taking the time to join us tonight. We'll let you get back to watching the program or doing whatever you're doing there at home. Take care.
My pleasure. Thanks, everyone. Bless you. Bye.
All right. Next on the agenda is Janet. We have our board chair coming up.
Hi, I'm Janet Hitchcock, and I'm the board chair of Telecare at this time, and I'm also one of the volunteers who spends time on the lines, and I also train the volunteers as they take up work in Telecare. So what's it like when you call Telecare? Well, we often start our course by saying, "This is Telecare. How may I help you today?" Sometimes the voice on the other end of the line says, "This is the first time I've called. Are you someone I can talk to?" And after assuring them that we are there to listen to them, they begin to express a problem or a difficulty that they are facing. We listen and support and usually say very little. The call often ends with the caller saying that having talked about their issues and having someone to listen, they feel much better. And we can end the call, inviting them to call again. Other times, the caller and volunteer immediately recognize each other's voices, and the caller shares an update of their situation. That's one of our regular callers. So what are these regular callers like? One caller used to frequently end up in the emergency waiting area at the hospital and often faced a lengthy wait. The caller would contact Telecare and the volunteer would listen and encourage them to be patient. They could call a few times during their waiting and we would keep them company as they waited. Another caller's circumstances have caused her to move frequently, and she finds herself lonely and disconnected from people who know her history. But when she calls Telecare, she can talk to people who have been listening and supporting her difficult journey over many years. Imagine that you had trouble and difficulty trusting people. It seems that every salesperson you encounter is there to rip you off. Online shopping cannot be trusted, neither can any online banking, almost any banking. In fact, you cannot safely share information with anyone. You can't trust your neighbours, and it's certainly not safe to allow any people into your house, including those doing repairs. Who can you talk to? This person calls Telecare, and we're there to listen and to support them in their journey. We have talked regularly with a man going through clinical depression. He called several years ago and until the depression lifted, and then we didn't hear from him for quite a time until he faced another bout of depression. He values the fact that we listen and we also pray for him. We hope he will stop calling soon, not because we don't want to listen anymore, but because the depression has lifted. Sometimes we get a caller who is considering suicide. All our volunteers have received training on how best to help someone and, if necessary, contact 911 on the caller's behalf. This type of call can be life-saving. We have callers who tell us they wouldn't be alive today if it were not for Telecare. We are thankful to God, for He is the one who leads and guides us as we listen and support our callers. We are thankful for all of those who are on the lines. with those who help with training, with fundraising and other activities. And we are grateful for those who support the ministry with finances and prayer. We hope and pray that this ministry will continue and grow from strength to strength in the coming years.
Well, good evening, everybody. My name's Bill Strom. It's my privilege to be Executive Director here at Telecare. I want to thank Daniel and Luke for capturing the heartbeat of Telecare. We are here to see callers as they are, in their sorrow, and to offer them God's grace and hope. And for all of you who joined tonight, welcome and thank you for coming. Whether you know little or much about us, we hope tonight is insightful and inspiring. Some may not know that Telecare BC has operated out of Abbotsford since 1989, serving British Columbians and more recently all Canadians through a 1-888 number. We take about 3,000 calls per year through a one-line studio office where we try our best to have a trained volunteer ready to answer the call from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. 7 days a week. The problem is that volunteerism is on the decline here in North America, and call centers like our own across the country struggle to find enough volunteers to do this important work. What this means is that sometimes there is no one on the phone and calls go unanswered. And that hurts. It hurts because we know that someone who might be feeling isolated or panicking or contemplating suicide goes unheard in that moment. Yes, callers can leave a message and we do call back, but the moment is lost. So our challenge tonight is that you help us answer the phone faithfully. Help us be there when the moment comes. Help us not let any call go unanswered. And the need is real. In this last 18 months during COVID-19, we have seen an increase of 24% in our number of calls. As Janet noted, people are experiencing family issues, health issues, loneliness, distress, depression, and spiritual concerns. Now, for some, us not answering the phone also means we miss the opportunity to pray with them. So how can you help? You can help tonight by providing a one-time donation or by becoming a monthly donor. We love monthly donors. Tonight, our goal is to raise $10,000. Now, while this event is free, we encourage you to give at least a $25 gift for which we can issue a tax-deductible receipt. You can do so by clicking on the donation button on our website at telecarebc.com/donate. That's telecarebc.com/donate. If you'd like to become a more regular giver on a monthly basis, go to our website and find the email or phone number to contact us, and we'll get back to you. That's again, telecarebc.com, and you'll get to that information. Recently, one of our donors wrote, "Thanks for being the voice of compassion and empathy for those who call in." And another donor wrote, "Your dedication to the work of supportive listening and care is an inspiration. Thanks for all you do." Would you please become a donor? You might ask, though, well, what will my contribution do? Well, we are so thankful for a generous donor who covered every cost of putting on this event tonight, which means everything raised today will go right to work helping us find and train more volunteers. And it also permits us to hire a few call responders to handle those late night and weekend shifts that are so hard to fill. Like a gift of $100 will cover a 6-hour graveyard shift, or a gift of $1,000 covers almost 2 weeks of one of those graveyard shifts. But folks, far more than covering shifts, you'll make a significant difference in the life of a hurting person. In my experience, as I listen on the call line, callers often thank me warmly for having been there, for understanding them, for helping them reduce their anxiety or panic. In short, they express thanks for having been seen and loved as they are. So thanks again for helping us ensure that no call goes unanswered. Do help us reach our goal of $10,000 tonight. You can go to telecarebc.com/donate and do that right now. Thank you so much, and God bless you very much.
This next song is a song that you will have not heard before because it was written specifically for this event. It was a co-write with my dear friend Dylan Tate from Brothers. I'm excited to share this with you because we wanted to write a song that was not only geared towards this event, but around the work that Telecare does. And so we wondered it would be interesting to write a song that was about calling a friend on the phone who's going through a hard time. So I'm excited to share our song Limbo with you.
Hello, my friend, how you've been? I know it's hard to find some peace of mind in limbo. Been holding on for far too long. Don't let go, don't let go. Just talk when there's nothing more than pain. When there's nothing more your word can take. 'Cause all I really know is that life is hard. When you're down, it's hard to reach out. When you're lost in the dark. But don't give up the fight, oh no, just wait for the light. 'Cause I know that hope will arise. Hello, it's me again, I'm checking in. You know, it's fine to say that you're not okay and you're stuck in limbo. Been holding on for far too long. Don't let go, don't let go. Just talk when there's nothing more than pain. When there's nothing more your word can take. 'Cause all I really know is that life is hard. When you're down, it's hard to reach out. When you're lost in the dark. But don't give up the fight, oh no, just wait for the light. 'Cause I know that hope will arrive. Hello. 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 I know. Limbo, don't let go. Hello. I know. Limbo, don't let go. Hello. I know. Limbo, don't let go. Hello, hello. 'Cause all I really know is that life is hard. When you're down, it's hard to reach out. When you're lost in the dark. But don't up the flight. Oh no, just wait for the light, 'cause I know that hope will arrive.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Luke. Just a beautiful song. We just want to acknowledge our technical glitch there, and we owe you one, Janet. Our apologies for not catching that. All right, we're going to do a draw. Like we said, we put everybody's name who registered into a bowl here. We've got your names, and the draw is for a cruise for you and 3 other people to go from Cole Harbor, which is right near the Bayshore Inn, all the way up to Indian Arm. You could actually talk to the boat owner, who's a friend of mine, and if you want to go somewhere else, there's the possibility of doing that too. But it's a beautiful boat, and the hosts are going to be just wonderful as well. So without further ado, here we go. And the winner of that cruise is Christina Ehring. So Christina Ehring, congratulations. We'll get in touch with you and provide you with further details. Well, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We appreciate every single one of you. It's been great to have you here. And thank you for supporting us financially. It was so wonderful to see people support and give gifts as they were registering. We really appreciate it. Your gifts are helping to change lives, and in some cases even save lives. And as Bill said in his talk, helping us to make sure that no call goes unanswered. So we appreciate your gifts so far this evening. And thank you to Marianne Groneweg and Telecare's fundraising committee for all the work that they did and the ideas that they put together for this event. Thank you to the donor who is helping cover the cost of this event, as Bill mentioned. And again, thank you to our presenters. Daniel, such a wonderful talk, and it was great to join you and have a conversation with you. And Luke, those beautiful songs. And Luke really went above and beyond. He did some great work behind the scenes as well. Really appreciate everything you did, Luke. And Bill and Janet, just want to apologize again, Janet. We owe you one for the little technical glitch that we had there. And finally, thank you to MS Productions and Patricia Dreesen, who's back here, and actually Bill's back here as well, for their help behind the scenes this evening. So take good care, everybody.